Welcome to Real Talk with Rhonda, and I'm your host, Rhonda Villamont Smith. This is our inaugural podcast where the goal of this podcast is to discuss the issues that matter to voters. Our goal is to bring on individuals that have firsthand knowledge of important local and state issues and concerns. Real Talk with Rhonda will connect you with the people that know about the issues that matter. So we're not going to dip our toes in to check the temperature. We're going to dive right in with our very first guest, Tulsa County Sheriff Vic Regalado. Vic has been serving Tulsa County since 2016 as sheriff. He is responsible for maintaining law and order within the borders of Tulsa County and commands a full-service law enforcement agency of over 600 personnel that includes detention, court services, and operational divisions. Welcome to Real Talk with Rhonda. And though I know I didn't say anything to you, thank you for being my very first guest. So we're going to muddle through this one together. But it's always great to have people that are willing to meet, and you're always willing to do that and talk about the issues that are important to people. So thank you for coming in for this candid conversation.
Absolutely honored to be the first guest, and look forward to many more opportunities.
Yeah, well, maybe if we start doing video, you'll be my first video.
There you go.
They'll get to see how pretty you are.
Get somebody better looking for that
Whatever.
one. But I'll be glad to come back anytime.
Well, we've got two hot button subjects. And of course, it's immigration and homelessness. And they're not really sexy topics, I know. But it seems that that's what conservatives are talking about every day. So, do you see a correlation between the influx of homeless people on our streets and under our bridges and the illegal immigration infiltration of our cities and communities? Is there anything that ties the two together, or are they really just separate issues?
No, they're really they're separate, but at the same time they draw from the same resources. So I think they're tied together in how they impact American cities and counties and towns and communities, because while you have, especially in this current administration's time in office, we've seen millions, and I don't think anybody really knows the true number, but I would venture to say, and I think most experts would, that it's in the millions of illegals that have come into the country. And so when you talk about that, you have to understand that these are people that are going to need hospital care, that are going to have children who are going to need educational requirements, that are going to need to work, that are going to need to eat, that are going to need to drink, and that are going to need to be housed. And so when you start redirecting those resources to this group of people, then what happens to the resources that are for our homeless population, many of which are veterans,
yes,
American citizens, people with mental illness and drug addiction? Well, I will tell you very clearly that those resources no longer are there, and neither is the emphasis on fixing that problem there anymore. It's all been redirected to individuals who have come into this country illegally. And I'll tell you, briefly, just so I don't dominate the conversation here, but I will tell you the example is you have a homeless population that we know are American, by and large, American citizens, and by and large are suffering from mental illness and drug addiction. Well, think about what programs we have enacted, or what resources have we thrown at our American citizens to address the fact that we have a real addiction problem here in the United States. We haven't.
Nope.
In fact, we've enabled our addicts by allowing marijuana legislation, by making misdemeanors of felony drug laws, and by basically taking a cavalier attitude in regards to drug addiction. And so what we do know is because of that, drug addiction has morphed into, and often goes hand in hand with, mental illness. And so you have this perfect storm that leads to our homeless population, right? So we've done nothing for that. But we're think about this now. It dominates the news locally and nationally about what we're going to do and the resources we're going to give to these individuals that entered in this country illegally.
And it's borrowed money.
It's
I mean,
borrowed
we're
money.
borrowed money. We're putting it on the backs of our grandchildren, but we're beyond our children. We're now to our grandchildren and great grandchildren, and we're expecting them to have to foot the bill for something that we're doing now. And like you say, we're not taking care of our own.
No,
We're taking care of. We place more value on someone that comes into the state illegally or into the country illegally than we do on, like you say, our veterans and our homeless.
Yeah, and the fact is, and it's unfortunate, but to say that, you've been made to feel like that's wrong, saying that we
Right.
should take Americans first and their welfare first, like it's some kind of sinful, racist, weird, politically driven, rhetoric, and it's not.
Well, how can we go and protect other countries' borders when we don't even protect our own? And I think that's probably a lot of the frustration that people feel with, like, sending money to the Ukraine or whatever, is that you've got people that we're sending them billions of borrowed dollars again to defend their border, but we're not doing anything to protect our own, and I think that's frustrating for people. So we're going to let's cover homelessness real quick. A lot of people, we see panhandlers everywhere. They're on almost every street corner. They're at every exit on the highways and stuff like that. So I think people are a little confused as far as what are the laws regarding panhandling.
So so from the county standpoint, we enforce state law. So we don't have a municipal law for panhandling. There are laws in regards to that, but it can't be impeding, and I'm going from memory here. So again, this is a municipal
Right.
laws,
No,
but basically, it can't be aggressive. You can't stop people. So they can stand on the corner and have what you see most often is the sign that says anything helps. They can do that.
Right.
And so people give them money and so forth and so on.
So do you recommend giving money?
I do not, and nor does any expert will tell you, and especially those that run John 3:16
Right.
and the Sally will tell you, look, don't give them money. We have resources. If you want to donate to those establishments,
Right.
so that they can do what they're supposed to do, and that's
John
house
3:16
and feed.
does an amazing
They
job.
do an outstanding job,
In
and
fact-
they really do. And so does the Salvation Army. They really do. And so if people really care and want to donate, then donate there.
Right.
But don't enable the homeless person to continue to live out on the corner. That's inhumane in and of
It
itself.
is. Well, what about the people, and I've seen this at, I think it's about 71st and Mingo. That's a woman, and she's got the yellow vest on.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a sign under her arm, a baby in her other arm, and a bucket of flowers. Trying to get money that way. Anything could happen. Those medians, because they're on the medians. They're not on the sidewalks.
And there's an ordinance that they have to wear a traffic vest. So if people have been seeing are homeless in traffic vests, it's because there is an ordinance that requires them to do that, so that they don't they don't get run over, or so that they're at least more visible to traffic. But that's part of the problem, is it's putting on a Band-Aid on a gushing wound. And it's just enabling them.
Yes.
It's not treating the core problem. And the core problem, again, is mental illness and addiction. We've got to get them into treatment. And anything that is going to address our homeless population should start off with a treatment first type of plan.
Right.
Not a housing first, because these people aren't going to stay housed. They've proven that
They
time
don't
and
wanna
time
be.
again. And many of them do not want to be. And so you have to start with the treatment first, and then you look at housing, and then a kind of a graduate type of program. And I'll tell you a really good program, and that has proven to be successful, and that's Women in Recovery.
Yes.
Now it's very small, and it caters to women only. But what it's shown us is that the model works. They have an 83% success rate with people addicted to methamphetamine, which is Oklahoma's number one enemy.
Right.
It's not fentanyl. It is methamphetamine. Now, fentanyl is closing in
I
on
thought we
that.
fixed that.
And no, what we did is we made it more pure, and now it's being manufactured in Mexico and brought over here in a more pure form. We were able to get rid of the one pop method where, people were hearing of trailer homes blowing up.
Or the
We
woman
fixed
walking
that.
around Walmart making
Buying
meth.
pseudoephedrine, things
Yeah.
like that. Well, we solved that. But then the Mexican cartels decided, well, we'll just manufacture it and bring it over. And that's where the open border
Right.
comes in. So, this is all really connected in one form or another. And we often look at the open border policy of this administration as just being limited to the illegals that are coming over. Well, it's not. What we've seen is fentanyl, which has killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. If planes were falling out of the sky at the rate
yeah.
that fentanyl is killing people, there'd be investigations
Somebody
all
would
over
be
the
doing
place.
something about
right?
it. That's exactly
but
right.
we're not. We're allowing it to come over freebie still, despite the fact it's killing Americans. Human trafficking, which encompasses forced labor, sex trafficking, and child sex trafficking, has increased and is now the number one money making for cartels. Not drugs anymore. It's human trafficking.
That's crazy.
And that is a direct result of the open border policy allowed by this administration. That's just a fact. And so it's unfortunate that we've convoluted this very simple fix with politics, but any solution, if it doesn't start with closing the border, I don't pay attention to it.
Right.
It's window covering again.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, how many more people's enough? Until when do you say enough's enough?
Right.
And the other thing is you don't even know who has come across the border, and the number one group now is Chinese nationals. Well, think about that for a second.
Yeah.
China's not a country where you just get up and leave.
No.
They leave for a reason. They come here for a mission, and whether it's sending back, seeds or intel or agricultural intel, there's a reason they've been allowed to come over here.
Right.
And and that's concerning. And there's been many instances documented already of terrorists being stopped on the way to the border, but how many got through? And
No, that's exactly right.
We have
Because we've got
basically-
thousands pouring across every day.
we've basically told the world we don't care about the safety of our borders.
Right.
And that's really the message.
And the
we
safety
sent.
of our people.
Our citizens,
because
absolutely.
we're no longer being able to protect the citizens from what's going on.
No.
But so with the homelessness, and we talked about drugs and we talked about mental health. Do you see like a rise in any other type of crime because of the homelessness? I mean, are they?
Retail theft.
Is-
I know there's legislation in place to bring that back down to $500 from the $1,000 that 780 and 81 rose it to.
Yeah, I saw
That-
somebody on Facebook complaining that they're trying to take away the people's vote. No, they're trying to clean up the mess that 780 and 781 caused because it was a very misleading and
It was flat out lies.
right when they got it passed.
Yes.
But as with most state questions, you think you're getting something good, and then
Yeah.
it goes into practice, and you find out that wasn't good at all.
No, and what I tell people is you have to look where the money came from, and so $11 million of outside Oklahoma money was spent to pass 780 and 81. $11 million. Now you have to ask yourself, why do people outside the state of Oklahoma care about state questions 780 and 81?
Yep.
Well, because there's a grand scheme in place.
There is.
And there really is when you look at that. And it's not even a conspiracy theory. It's just a fact. You just have to look it up and question it, and then the answer will come right to you. But the fact is that there has been a nationwide effort to make misdemeanors out of felony drug laws, to allow marijuana, both recreational and medicinal, to be legal. We were fortunate here to shoot down recreational.
Yeah,
That
820.
was the start, but it really doesn't matter because if you want marijuana, it's for everybody.
Right.
You just get on the computer and some half-baked doctor will come on and
Tell you,
ask you a few questions and say, okay, here you go, and get your own card and you go get it.
Well, I think that's why 820 had such a difficult time passing, because in reality, whether we want to acknowledge it or not, we already have recreational marijuana.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I don't think that there's anybody that I've ever heard of that's been rejected from receiving a medical marijuana card. So,
Not at all.
So if people were planning to come here to partake, then I just say that you prepare ahead of time and get your card before you come, if that's the case. But We're not like, we're not like Colorado, but then we still have, medical marijuana facilities almost on every street corner. And it's
We do.
like, I don't understand how they have enough business to keep them going.
They don't. They've outsupplied the demand. And so that's why we also lead the country in illegal marijuana sales, black market marijuana.
Okay.
The cartels buy
So
from
we're
Oklahoma.
exporters.
We're exporters of marijuana. We really are. And because think about that for a second. If we've made so much marijuana here in Oklahoma that we have outpaced our users,
Right.
then where's that marijuana going? Well, they're not throwing it away.
No, they're not. They're
come
not
on.
burning it.
That's money. And so, that's why, I do applaud the efforts of the AG to crack down on these illegal marijuana dispensaries. But again, we wouldn't be here had we really thought ahead of what this was going to do to us. And secondly, when we talk about the homeless population, there is a direct correlation between an increase in a city's homeless population and the legalization of marijuana. Okay? And what we have seen, and this is science, unlike the pseudo and make-believe science that was used to pass marijuana, but the dosage units now in marijuana are so high that it's actually causing psychosis. Dr. Beeman, who I respect completely. I think he's one of the foremost experts in addiction, and he's right here out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, will be the first to tell you that it is causing psychosis in people. Because think about this for a second. When you apply common sense, do you take a bottle of 500 ibuprofens when you have a headache?
No.
No. Well, guess what? People are taking chocolate bars of marijuana with 1,000 dosage units in it.
Wow.
As compared to there was a study on cancer patients and marijuana, and there was found to be a little bit of use for medical marijuana to help with the nausea and the sickness that comes with cancer.
Right.
And so they said that for cancer patients who were using it to use no more than 30 milligrams, right? But we're selling chocolate bars that have 1,000 milligrams. Why would you do that, right? And so it's causing psychosis.
Well, you can
in our
trust
people.
them. They know
Absolutely.
They know how
Based
to
in
just
science.
taste a little bit. Take a little bit, just what's needed.
They're just hooking you in.
No.
It's no different than the model that the cigarette industry used in the 70s and the 80s.
Right.
They started off, then they outpaced adult cigarette smokers, and so what was the next market? Teenagers.
Teenagers, yeah.
And kids.
And then it was cool. Remember, it was
Yep.
so cool. At least when I grew up, I can tell you, we started smoking 13, 14. My mom was telling me, she says, I remember the first time I walked in, she had walked in on my little brother, because I'm the oldest of the three of us. And she walked in on him. He was about 11 or 12 years old, and he's just sitting in bed smoking a cigarette like there was nothing, and she was like, oh my gosh, but that was us. Now you hardly ever see anybody smoking. I mean, they have completely
basically a thing of
turned
the
that
past.
around, because I do remember, I'd walk a mile for a camel, or what was
the Marlboro Man.
Yeah,
and,
the
the
Marlboro
rebel
Man.
without a
yeah.
cause.
So,
who didn't want to be the Marlboro Man?
That's
right.
right.
That guy was cool.
He
right?
was. That's right.
And but yeah, so it's the same model they're using now in the marijuana industry, and and I don't think it's such a powerful industry. I don't think we're ever going to get that removed. But what I do think we can do is legislate the THC content.
Right.
And that's what we need to do.
Right.
If not, again, you're going to see an increase in psychosis, and you're going to, and hence you're going to see an increase in the homeless population, and we have.
Right. No. So let's just kind of wrap up on homelessness. But what is your greatest concern that you have regarding homelessness in Tulsa County?
That if we do not make some critical decisions now, we will never be rid of it, and it will continue to be a huge problem, a huge drain on our resources, both medically and especially in the medical. If you want a firsthand look at the impact, go to any of our area hospitals on the weekends at night, overnight, and see how many homeless people are there.
Right.
And that's a drain on our nurses,
It
especially our nurses. We're losing them left and right because they're overworked. And they're being treated like like
Dirt.
crap.
Yeah, they
by
are.
these people, you
Yeah.
know, and it's just unfortunate. But that's where people don't realize that's a byproduct of homelessness. And again, the idea that we are going to enable them is inhumane. I don't know how you can justify that.
No.
Let's get these people help. These are American citizens. They're our fellow Oklahomans. Let's get them out of that lifestyle. Let's get them treated for their illness. Let's get them off dope and see if they can't make something of their lives. And there's success stories of this all over the place. You just don't hear about them. And I think if we don't take a hard line and do something now, it will be a problem that we won't be able to get a handle on. And we've seen that happen already.
Yeah.
Across the country.
And I think, like you said, Women in Recovery is a great program. My mom
Absolutely.
helps women that are, either out of drug court or just recently out of prison, and trying to help them get ahead. I think sometimes they, of course, when you're that down, when you've hit rock bottom, then it's hard for them to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But if they're willing to work these programs and be dedicated to getting off of whatever it is that they're on, to finding a job, to doing what they need to be doing, to be an upstanding citizen, because I think they really want to be.
Absolutely. Nobody says, you know what I want to be when I grow up? A full-blown drug addict living in the alley.
That's right.
Nobody says that.
No. Can I live in a trash can? Can I
Yeah.
sleep in a... Yeah, no. It's... And mental health. That's such a huge issue,
And we talk about, money. And here's what I would advocate for, and it follows that Women in Recovery model a little bit here. But let me backtrack. Before 780 and 81, we had felony drug laws, okay?
Right.
And anybody familiar with addiction, okay? And I come from a family of addicts, and I'm very, very
think we
familiar
all
with
do.
it. Yeah, I think,
I think we've all got
right?
somebody.
And my mom was an addict, and I still remember going with her to meetings and things like that.
Right.
And from an early age, what I found is that when people tell their sobriety stories, it always starts off with, the day I decided to make a change was when the judge says, this is your last chance or you're going to prison for 30 to life, right? That hit home. It wasn't, oh, my wife said I better get off the dope. No, that's why
Right.
there's a high divorce rate. It wasn't, I was afraid to lose my children. That's why we have a lot of fatherless homes right now.
Correct.
It wasn't that I was going to lose my job. No, most
That
addicts
they
are
were going to
unemployed.
lose their freedom.
It was their freedom. And
Yeah.
that was the hook. Now, we took that away, okay? And so now, to me, the new hook is this, is if we could spend the money that we spend, putting resources towards our homeless population, if we could take that money and say, listen, and go to the addict before they get into the criminal justice system and say, listen, if you will go get help, we will use this money to make sure that your rent is paid so that when you come back, you still have a home.
Right.
We will get with DHS or whomever to make sure your children are still in your custody. When you come back, your children in your home are going to be here.
Right.
Then we're also going to make sure that you have employment. We're going to find a job for you. Jobs are aplenty right now.
Right.
And so we're going to put you through a trade school. We're going to find you employment, and then you're going to find your sobriety. But you have to get your sobriety or none of this happens.
Right.
There's your hook right there.
That's
but it's
right.
a hook that doesn't involve getting into the criminal justice system.
Right.
If we could spend money to set a program like that up, I'm all for it. And that's the type of out-of-the-box thinking that we're going to have to do. We can't start drawing out of the same old playbook. It hasn't worked. It won't work. It's going to make things worse, and we have to change our minds. And I'll end it with this. And again, I'm going to go back to Dr. Beaman. He said it best. He said, we're not going to incarcerate our way out of the addiction program. He goes, until we start asking why Oklahomans want to use opioids, methamphetamine, or marijuana, we're never going to get rid of this problem.
Well, that's true.
It's true. It really is. Until we figure out, why do you want to use those things?
But don't you think that that often starts at a younger age, just like in like alcoholism?
It does.
Because where they're in high school and now it's like, okay, well here, try this or try that, and next thing you know, because it only takes one time to get to become addicted for some people.
It does.
Some people can can use it, recreationally, and it never bothers them. But there are those people out there that the first time they use it, they're addicted. But we don't do. My thing is mental health. Is the fact that we've shut down all of our mental health facilities, or the majority of them. We've got no place to put these people for a short period of time for detox and to get, to start to get clean. I'd like to see us, put some resources there so that we can then start helping them where they need it. And sometimes they need to get out of the house for a few days. Sometimes they need to get away from the things that trigger them. And we just don't have that availability anymore now that we've got all this. And the youth, I mean, there's nothing, a place to send the youth that are having problems. And these parents, I am so grateful that my children are grown, because raising kids today, has got to be so difficult. But
it is, and unfortunately, and I'm going to pick on the state of Oklahoma here for a second, but they haven't upheld their constitutional obligations. ODMH is constitutionally obligated to address, house, and care for those mentally ill.
Right.
Okay? And they haven't. They've passed it on to the county jails. And the county jails are not the place
Nope.
to perform mental illness treatment or any kind of treatment, to be quite honest with you. But I have the most robust mental health facility in the state of Oklahoma,
Right.
and it's in a jail.
Yeah.
Okay, that is wrong.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to get arrested to get help.
Exactly. And recently they tried to have us do mental competency restoration in our jail. And those are for people who don't know what that is. If you get arrested and the judge says, hey, listen, this individual is obviously suffering from some mental illness.
Right.
They can't help in their defense. So let's get them help. Let's see if we can get them restored mentally
Right.
so that they can take part in their trial. If they can't, then we need to send them on to a mental health facility to get help, right?
Right.
That should not be done in our jail. We're
No.
holding people, and I think it's a constitutional violation. We're holding people that don't even know what they're charged with. Why are they in my jail?
There's no due process.
Absolutely not. And there's no place in which for them to go. And so ODMH has a $500 million budget. And I think that they need to start using it in places that, that we need it. We need facilities throughout the state. We need facilities that aren't just in Veneta, but satellite facilities so that our rural areas can
Right.
get to them, right? Not
Right.
just Tulsa and Oklahoma City, but Oklahoma is a rural state.
It is.
And so we have to have places where they can get to, so these are things that you just gotta, you just gotta, use some common sense thinking. You gotta think outside
Nobody
the box.
does that anymore.
No,
Vic.
it's
Nobody,
a thing of the past.
Nobody uses common sense.
But it doesn't. You're right. And if we did, goodness, I think half our problems would be done. But so these are things that I, you asked me what do I want to see. These are things that I want to see done. And I think the citizens of Oklahoma will benefit from it. We just have to spend our money on our people,
Right.
not in faraway lands where no one knows where the money's going. We don't know why we're there. Let's spend it on our people. How about that for a second?
That's
Let's just do it for a little bit.
Well, if we're going to borrow it, we may as well borrow it for us,
Hey,
right?
yeah, give me $2 billion and I'll solve your problem.
That's right. Yeah,
You
me
know,
too. Yeah,
but
or
we're
I'll at
sending-
least solve my problem,
Yeah.
and then to hell with the rest of you.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's basically what this administration has said.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to
No
solve
doubt.
ours, but not yours.
All right. Well, we're going to take a quick break right here, and then we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. All right, welcome back, and thank you for staying tuned with Rhonda. Oh, no, Real Talk with Rhonda. I'll get it right. This is my first time, so give me a break. Where we connect you, the listeners, to the people that know about the issues that matter. So we're going to move on. We're going to discuss the hot button issue, which is immigration, or should I say illegal immigration. Because I'm not going to play around with verbiage out of fear of offending anyone by calling these lawbreakers newcomers, like some people we know.
Yeah.
No matter which way you slice it, they're in our country illegally. So thus we're going to call them illegal immigrants. So can you tell me, Sheriff Regalado, is Tulsa County a sanctuary county?
It depends who you ask. We're either sanctuary or we're welcoming. I'm not quite sure the difference in them, but what I am sure of is that we need to pull the welcome mat, and because we have our problems here on a much narrower scale, we have our problems here in Tulsa, Oklahoma that we need to fix. We do not need to fix everybody else's problems right now. And I'll give you a prime example only because this just happened to me this past Sunday. I went to the Walmart, 81st and Sheridan, the neighborhood Walmart there. And I'm in, like everybody else, I go there to do my shopping. And what I've noticed over the last couple of years is people's shopping cart really gone from full at the checkout line to now the bare necessities.
Yep.
And that's just a fact.
Yeah, it is.
In fact, my cart has shrunk. And so we know that inflation is high, costs have risen, and the American
Thanks, Joe Biden.
The Tulsan, your average Tulsan is suffering.
Right.
Okay, now here's what happened. As I'm shopping, I feel a tug at my shirt, and I turn, and it's an Afghan lady with her son. And in broken English, she has a cart with her. In broken English, she says, "I beg you, will you please help us? We're starving." And so I looked in her cart, and there was nothing in there like cigarettes or things that
Right.
you could look at and go, "Wait a minute, you're going to go resell that." No, it was bulk rice, beans, and so I bought it for them. But I thought about this. I thought, it's fortunate she picked me. I can afford to do it. My kids are out of the house.
Right.
It's my wife and I. But why does the average citizen have to do that? That maybe couldn't afford it.
Right.
But it tugs on your heartstrings.
It does.
And then we're a charitable people here in Tulsa. I've been to a lot of places in my life, and these Tulsans are one of the more kinder people that I've ever been around. And, but why am I put in that position? Why have I been placed in that position to go, either no, I can't afford to do that, you're going to have to go somewhere else, and then I feel like doo-doo the rest of the day.
Exactly.
Or I have to go, you know what, yes, you need it more than I do, and I'm just going to have to go without myself or my family.
Because that's the kind of people that we are. We would sacrifice.
But why have we been put in that position? And here's why. Whatever organization brought those people over here, wonderful.
Catholic Charities.
It is Catholic Charities, I think. I couldn't remember, so I didn't want to say it. But regardless of who it was, you pat yourself on the back and you brought him here. Great. But now they're out begging on the street. Please tell me the humanity behind that. And so why are we bringing people that we can't sustain? It's not charitable. It's not to say, hey, you can come over here and hang out. Oh, but once you get here, you're kind of on your own. And now this poor lady, I don't care where you're from, it takes a lot to beg somebody for food.
Does.
But her son was there, and our children mean more to us than anything. And if I were to hit hard times, I would beg for my children so they could eat. And so, obviously that was a no-brainer. We're going to pay for it. I'm going to pay for it. But why am I in that position?
Well, the churches have abdicated their roles a lot of times, but like you said, when they were brought in as refugees, they were given all kinds of free stuff. They had free housing, they had free food. They were being kept at the DoubleTree downtown.
But those run out.
And that money ran out. But you see, who benefited from that? Who benefited? It was against Catholic Charities because they were paid.
Oh, without a doubt.
To do that, and then now they can just, we did what we said. We did that, and so now we're hands off.
And that's the point of my story, is that at the end of the day, these failed policies and these terrible ideas fall on the average American citizen to pick up the pieces.
Yeah.
And we can't afford to pick those pieces up anymore.
No.
It's just a fact. We cannot do it anymore. Our infrastructure is breaking down. Our health industry is going to pot. We're paying high premiums now. Our emergency rooms are overrun.
Look at what
our
your insurance is right now.
Our insurance is through the roof. Our educational system is in shambles because you have classrooms of kids that can't speak English and you have no interpreters, because there's no teachers. And so when is enough enough? And really, that's the question that people should ask themselves. It's not, my parents are immigrants, okay, and I think they're an important part of American history. They are America,
Right.
And in one form or another, but there has to be a system in place, and there is one, and I would even say we can make a better one. But regardless, there has to be a system in place. We can't just open the gates and say, "Come on," and oh, by the way, the middle class on down, you take care of them.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
No, well, I was getting out of the car at Walmart one day, had just opened the door, reached over to grab my purse and turned around, and when I turned around, right in the door was a woman and her son.
Mm-hmm.
Totally scared the crud out of me, and they were asking for help, and yeah, it's a shame that these people have been put into this place where they were told to come over, and we were going to provide them refuge, and then once the money runs out, then they're on their own. But at the same time, oftentimes these people don't work to assimilate into our population either, and they expect us to assimilate to them instead of them assimilating to us.
Yeah, and and again, we've been made to feel like asking them to assimilate into the American culture is somehow racist or dirty, and it's not. And I certainly don't listen to that ridiculousness.
Well, it's kind of like when you're in the airplane and they tell you, if you lose oxygen, the masks are going to drop down, but put yours on first before you help, your favorite child. So that's kind of what we need to be doing. We need to be putting our oxygen mask on first before we reach out to start trying to help somebody else, because if we're broken, how are we going to help other people?
Exactly, but the elites and the radicals that are currently in this administration don't think of that. It's a do-good thing. So this week, Oklahoma County, their county commissioners passed we are not, never have been, won't ever be, don't plan on it, a sanctuary county. Do you see the Tulsa County commissioners doing anything like that? I think they have. If not, then I could see them doing that.
Yeah.
I could.
Sometimes it's just to ease people's minds.
It is. And then again, let's, saying we're not a sanctuary city and not following through with what that really means, then it's just words again.
Right. Exactly.
I'd much rather get rid of both those terms, and let's just do what's right and what's sustainable for citizens of Tulsa first.
Right.
And then we can worry about everybody else, you know? How do you, how do you let a homeless population continue to increase, yet on this hand, bring in
more homeless people.
More homeless people or future homeless people?
Exactly.
I don't understand that way of thinking. It's foreign to me. It's weird. And it's just unacceptable.
Right.
And especially since there are jobs available. There is a way for people to make money and prosper and get on their own 2 feet. And to me, there's no better feeling in the world than making your own money. You know, we were brought up that way. Hard work trumps everything.
That's right.
And you feel good about it.
Yeah.
There's a sense of pride, but we've lost that.
Yeah.
We've lost, I think we as a whole here in America, we've lost that grit, that sense of pride. We've gotten spoiled, and we've gotten dumb and fat.
Yeah.
And, and it's hitting us now, and we don't know how to react.
Well, and I think that too often people are paying attention to what's going on with news, or how we're supposed to be this wonderful and loving, people, without stopping to see exactly what it's doing to us in the end. It's hard to see the forest for the trees. Yep. So,
it is.
I'm going to give you a scenario, and then you tell me how this plays out. Okay. There's a traffic stop is made, a traffic violation. When you approach the car, they have they don't speak English, and they have no driver's license, and there's no type of identification. So what is the next step with that person?
Well, there's 2 routes. One, they can be cited if you can determine who they are and you believe that is who they are. They can be cited and released, and they'll have to go to court. to either show they've gotten a license at that time, or if they haven't, then that's up to the judge to decide what their fate is.
Do
in
we have many
regards to that.
no-shows at court?
Oh yeah, we have a lot of those. That's why we have warrants for arrest for people.
Okay.
But the second option is you can be arrested for not having a driver's license. Now, in that instance, if the individual can't speak English, then if they were booked in on a state charge, which means they come to our jail and not a municipal one, the city has their own jail. If it was a state charge and they come to our jail, then we have what's called a 287G detention officer who will take that individual through a series of questions to determine whether or not they're here as a citizen or they're here illegally. If they're here illegally, then we contact ICE, who will then start the process. Now, here's the difference between this administration and the last. The last administration is we could put the detainer on you and it was on you right there.
Right.
Okay? And so you still had to deal with your local charges, but you couldn't go anywhere. Now it's a process in which they've got to send it to D.C., it's got to be blessed, and then it's got to come back down. It takes 2 to 3 days. Well, we can't hold you. Even if you're not a citizen here, you still have constitutional rights, believe it or not.
But hang on. What
And-
about our mental people that are being held without due process?
That's exactly right.
If we can hold them without due process, then why can't
Well,
illegals
that's-
be held
and
without?
that's my argument. But I'm just telling you what it is
Right,
now.
I know. I'm just
is
throwing
that-
it out there and saying,
Oh,
hey,
absolutely.
wait a minute. You just told me
Yeah.
that this doesn't work this way for American citizens.
Isn't that weird? And that's my whole thing, is that we
Right.
we will take more effort on the side of individuals not from here instead of the ones that are homegrown and are our fellow Americans.
Right.
No argument there. But in this instance, they're afforded a bond, and so oftentimes they'll bond out and they disappear into the wind, right? So that's kind of how that scenario plays out. Now, I will tell you, you were there when I first came on. You know, I took a lot of heat because of my stance on illegal immigration and
Right.
and how I would continue the 287G program. You know, what the people who were against that would try to have you believe was that we were taking illegal aliens, you know, and arresting them and deporting them because they ran a stop sign.
Right.
Well, that simply wasn't
Or
true.
you stopped them because they look different
Or
than
they
you.
look different, and they use
Right.
the whole racial profiling. You know, they always want to go to race, and that's just such a bunch of BS. That
It is.
I don't even spend time talking about that anymore. But the facts is that those weren't the facts. The facts is that we were deporting known felons, you know, and I'm
Right.
talking not just your run-of-the-mill felon. We're talking shooters, drug traffickers, sex traffickers, domestic violence, shooting with intent to kill. So your biggies,
Right.
rapes.
Right.
Those were the ones, and we were averaging around 100 to 130 of those detainees in our jail. Guess what we have averaged now the last 3 years? 0. So I ask you, did they stop committing those crimes, or where are they at now?
Right.
So they're back in your community,
Right.
you know?
They're right
And
back where they started. So that's the ICE detainees. Is
those
that
are
what we were talking?
detainees and
So
and
you've
people
gone
arrested on
from
felonies.
you've gone from 150 or so, right,
To
to
0.
none.
And
it's not because you're doing your job right, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it's not because everybody decided to quit, you know, committing
That's
terrible
right.
felonies. It's
right.
just not. You know, I wish it was. That'd be great, but it's not. And, you know, so now you have individuals that have committed heinous crimes that disappear.
Right.
And they're out there, but they're still here in America, and they're out there. And so, to me, this is one of those things that, you know, predicting crime and preventing it is difficult to do. If anybody had the magic answer, we wouldn't have crime, right?
Right.
But this is one of those that you could.
That's right.
Because this is an individual that shouldn't have been here, that should have been deported back to their country of origin, and they wouldn't be here to run your kid over in a DUI, or they wouldn't be here to shoot at a cop, or they
Right.
wouldn't be here to traffic drugs. They wouldn't be here in America.
Right.
Hence, they wouldn't be committing that crime.
Exactly.
Right? And so that is one of the few things that we can prevent ahead of time.
Yeah.
But we don't.
Yeah.
And so
And that's a choice. That's this administration, and,
It is.
and that's why, you know, people have got to realize that elections matter.
Yeah.
You know, and this the Biden in 3 years has done more to destroy America than any other organization or group has been able to do in such a short period of time. And opening the borders was the worst thing that you could possibly do.
And we've allowed it, and it's actually, to me, it's been a process in the making, because think about this for a second. At least in my lifetime, and I'm 53. We've gone from a very pro-American, pro-patriot times in my life, and to now where we have half the population that can't stand their own country. And so when you can't stand your own country, do you really care that there's illegals coming over? You don't, right? And so we've been made to believe that all these things, standing for the flag is wrong, and being patriotic is wrong. They've convinced you of that.
That's
and henceforth, well, if you don't have pride in the own place that you it's like your house. If you don't have pride in your home and you keep a nasty home, well, then you don't care if your buddies come over and party and tear your home up.
Right.
Right?
No, you're right.
But if you take pride in your home and you clean it and you work on the yard and you make sure it's the prettiest house on the block, what do you do to the friend that comes over and starts partying and destroying your place? Well, you kick them out.
Yeah, you ask them to leave. That's exactly right.
Well, that's what's happened here. It's a simple explanation, but that's what has happened in part of our population, is that they've been made to believe that our country is founded on evil and founded on racism and founded on that, when the exact opposite is true. And we're the least racist country in the world.
We help the most.
And to me, if we help the most people, we're the most generous.
We are.
And here's what's even more disheartening. Although I love talking to them, but it's just disheartening because they are more patriotic than homegrown Americans, and that's our immigrants.
Yes.
I can't tell you, I've been very fortunate as a sheriff to be able to travel to different places and meet different people. And I will just never forget this. And it's such a great story. But it's the first time I got to go to D.C., and I'd never been there before, so I took a real quick kind of jogging tour of all the monuments.
Yep.
And I was at the World War II one, and I looked over and I saw this elderly couple, and they were dressed in traditional Indian garb from India. And so I went over there and I started a conversation, and I could tell they were very intense. And so I thought, well, maybe he didn't look old enough to have served, but I thought, well, maybe he had a son. Anyway, so I asked him, I said, did you know somebody in World War II? He said, oh, no. He goes, we became citizens just 15 years ago. And he goes, but we come here every year to thank these people for having given their lives to allow us to live in the greatest nation in the world.
That brings a tear to your eye.
Oh, I did. I gave him a hug.
That gives you chills.
These were people that didn't have anybody in World War II, weren't even here.
Right.
But became citizens, and every year, he says, every year we make a pilgrimage here to thank them for their sacrifice.
That's awesome.
And I said, good God Almighty, where are our school kids to learn about that? Where are the other Americans that should be here doing the same thing?
But that's our public. A lot of that has to do with our public education system, and it also has to do with your parental involvement.
It does.
I remember my daughters, my twins, came home one year. I think it was 9th grade, and they said, "Mom, did you know that all of our founders were a bunch of rich white slave owners?" And I went, "Okay, now we're going to sit down and have a real history lesson." But this is the things that they're being taught. It's like I was working the fair, and we were talking to a group of young kids, and they started talking about communism. I said, well, you don't agree with communism? And they said, well, it would work, but America keeps getting involved in other people. So if America would quit, American involvement is what stops communism from working properly. And I'm like, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard, but that's what they're getting in school.
It is, and unfortunately, what they don't teach is the history of communism and Mao and Stalin and how communism actually took root. And it was the same thing that's happening right now. They start with their young, they change the educational system, then they change the history, and then before you know it, you have generations going, "Gosh, wait a minute. This is an evil place. We need communism." And then
everything needs to be equal. We all need to be the same, and it's like you get your ass out there and work as hard as I do, and then you can get the same thing I get,
Exactly. And then that's what I'm saying. We've built entitlement, and and that's the problem, is that that's become ingrained. And then not to mention, social media now. And there's a lot of factors that, being a kid today is so confusing because unlike us, they, information is at their fingertips.
Right.
And sometimes it's misinformation and disinformation. But parents do, they need to sit down and they need to talk with their kids and talk to them about truth and point them in different areas to look at and read and things like that. And that's the only way we're going to change it.
Yeah.
And we have to start getting to our
We
youth.
have to be proactive.
Very proactive.
We can't be reactive any longer. We have to be proactive. We have to be the ones that are teaching our children.
Yeah.
Because if we're going to leave it to the public school system, then we're going to get the product of what we have right now.
Yeah.
And until we correct that, because right now, I was just talking to one of our school board members. A lot of the illegal immigrant or the illegal immigrants that are coming across that are young are 15 and 16 years old.
Yeah.
And they're showing up at high school, and now they can't speak English, but yet we're expected to educate them. And so I think that we need to really reevaluate the way that we do things and the way that we see things and what we feel our responsibility really is toward these illegal immigrants, because I don't believe that we have a responsibility to educate every single child that's here, because we have an obligation to take care of Oklahoma children, of people that are here the way that they're supposed to be. But it was really frustrating because we were listening to something, and Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas said, and this is crazy, that illegal immigrants aren't really illegal. They're just undocumented people who don't come into our country properly. You know? And so as long as we keep whitewashing and sugarcoating and doing all of that, then it's going to, anytime there's people like you and I that say, no, this is wrong, we need to do something about it, then we're the bad guy.
Yeah, and it's a play on words, so over time it will be, quit saying illegal.
Yeah. Well, they've already told us that.
Yeah.
Call them, they're undocumented. They're
it
illegal.
went from undocumented to now newcomers.
Yeah.
You can call it whatever it is you want. At the end of the day, it is, it is what it is. But here's the deal. That's why I continue to, every time I do public speaking, I usually, and you've heard me, I've said, look, it's important. Elections are important. And we have to elect people right now that aren't politicians, that are going to come in and make those hard decisions. And then there's a time for those types, and the time is now.
Right.
I know, and everybody knows, you can't keep that kind of hardcore politician in place. They eventually work themselves out of office.
Right.
But right now, we need them, because the ones we have right now are buying into this. Some of them,
they are,
and some of them are Republicans, and and it's just like, well, goodness, if you have one party that is crazy already,
right,
and then you have a part of this other one that is somewhat buying into the craziness, then, well, where do we stand?
Yeah.
And so that, a lot of people are going into independent, and I don't know that that's an answer, but regardless, we need people that are going to take a stance on these things and say enough is enough. Let's get back on track. And then once things are back in order, then, politics are politics,
just
I
like
guess.
We need to in education go back to reading, writing, arithmetic.
Yes.
We need to take it back to the basics at our local government and our state government level as well. So, well, we're about to wrap up because I've taken enough of your time, but I do want to end on a really positive note. You've done a lot for our county, and you've inspired great confidence in our community. And I was just recently reading about a program that you guys are doing called Teen Driving Course. I think it's great. I think there's no better way to learn how to drive it like you stole it than to learn from the police department.
Exactly. That's right. That's right.
But no defensive driving. I'm teasing.
They're either going to be great getaway drivers, but they're going to be safe.
That's right. They're going to know how to do it right.
That's right.
But no, tell me a little bit about this program, because I think it's great.
Yeah. So one of our captains came up with the idea, and he said, what do you think about me starting this where we will teach kids basically defensive driving, how to come out of a skid, all survival
Right.
type of things. And I said, absolutely, what a great idea.
Yeah.
And so we had already put one class through, and it was wildly successful.
Good.
The second one's getting ready to start, and it filled up like that. And so
Yeah.
we're going to continue doing this on a grander scale. But this is something that will actually save kids' lives. And what was wonderful about it, so after our first class, we actually had a young lady who took that class, and a year later called us and said, if it wasn't for that class, I would have been killed. But I was in an incident where I had to use defensive driving
is
skills,
awesome.
and it saved my life. Thank you. And so that was like, that's enough for us, right?
Right.
This thing's here to stay, and we're going to do it. But it was such a wonderful idea, and we're going to continue doing that. And it also will help with your insurance rates and things
Right.
like that. And so it's a great program. And I would encourage anybody with kids that are getting ready to be drivers, or they have a teenage driver.
I think when
Bring
I
it
read it,
over.
I think they're supposed to have been driving maybe for about 6 months
Yeah,
or something
they have
like
to have
that.
their license because of some of the things we're going to have them do.
Right.
But so I think you get your license like 16 now, 17.
I think so, 16.
And so
yeah.
you can be that young and take part in it, or if
So
you're,
is texting and driving, do you teach them how to do
yeah,
that? or-
yeah. Somebody said that: text and drive, and speak on the phone, and drink coffee.
That's right. That's right. Can we
Exactly.
do that
Yeah.
while putting on our makeup? Yeah,
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah,
No,
no,
when
it's a
I saw
great
that, I just
program.
thought it was great because I know that teenage drivers, they think they know what, but they don't know what they don't
They
know.
don't,
And so,
exactly.
teaching them how to come out of difficult situations is always going to
Absolutely.
be
Yeah.
is always going to be good. The other thing I want you to brag about is your new digs. I hear you
So
got
we opened our new facility about 3 months ago. It's at 6080 East 66th Street North, but it's right next door to the Tulsa Police Academy and just south of the Cherokee Industrial Complex over there.
Okay.
And it's been outstanding. We were able to use federal tax dollars during the ARPA funding. And we built what was already started from the previous administration, but they ran out of money, and so I knew coming in we had to do something with it, and then it finally occurred to me, why don't we just move everything up there?
Right.
And then the pandemic happened, and we seized an opportunity, but it's functional. It will carry us, into the future. And it gets us out of downtown, so it allows for some growth downtown.
Right.
Clearing out that spot just north of the BOK Center where our old offices were. So it's a great thing, and it's a morale booster. It really is. People have new offices, new digs,
Right.
and they tend to come to work and with a better attitude.
have a better attitude.
better
Well,
attitude, and things like that. So.
I drove by the old building
Mm-hmm.
yesterday, I just realized that you guys got a new place, and I looked at it and I thought, yeah, it does. It looks tired. It looks, it looks old. It needs some love, and
Most people don't know this. So that half of the building, the west part of that building was built in 1926.
oh, wow.
The second half of that building was built onto it in 1960. So the youngest part of the building was
100 years
1960.
old.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that's
And
well,
the old part's 1926, and it used to be an ice factory. But it wasn't built for law enforcement. It was falling apart. There was, rats the size of cats around there, and then of course homeless everywhere. And it was just, when you work and live there for so long, you forget what a dump you're in. And now when I drive by, I'm like, how on earth
did we do
work
it? And
there?
it's like it was like this too,
Yeah.
because I can remember going in and yet office,
Yeah.
just
Yeah, it
one
just
on top of
wasn't-
the next one.
It wasn't constructed for offices, but so fortunately we were able to get out of there and into our new digs, and I think it was a great morale booster, but it's gonna carry us for the future. And
That's
so-
awesome, and that's always great. That you can look ahead when you're
Absolutely.
gone. It's the next guy's not gonna. It's not gonna be a problem that they have to worry about.
Absolutely, and so,
So I wouldn't be myself if I didn't bring this up. But last year you went through a pretty nasty illness.
I did.
And you were lifted up in prayer for a full recovery.
Let me tell you, it was first for those that don't know, I was diagnosed with cancer in January of last year, end of January of last year, and it was pretty bad. I had to go through radiation and chemo, and it just wiped me out. It was You know, I think I lost 80 pounds. It was terrible.
Of muscle.
Of muscle and everything. Yeah, I did. I went down and it was like, oh my gosh, it was just incredible. But here's what I tell people. And again, this is why I've said it. I've always said it because I do. I feel a true love for the people of Tulsa because they were kind to me day one when I came here in 1993 to be a Tulsa police officer. They just everybody I met was like, oh well, welcome, and we have a great police department. I was like, wow, this place is so friendly. But I will tell you, and I want to tell you a quick story, and,
Sure.
and I know we're pressed for time, but this just sums it up. So it was about my third weekend of third or fourth week into treatment, and I am sick. Like, you've had the flu. This is flu on steroids.
Right.
It just, I didn't know it was possible to be this sick. And I was going in for my morning radiation, and the machine was down. So they said I was going to have to wait for a couple hours. Well, you know, that on top of sick, I sat down and I put my elbows on my knees and I just stared at the ground and I just began arguing with God. I literally was like, it was a dark place. It was like,
Right.
you know, this is your fault. And you know, and maybe it wasn't the best follower, but I was a good follower, you know, why me? It was my why me stage. And then I hear this voice, Sheriff? And I look up and I see this elderly gentleman. I said, yes. And he said, oh, I thought that was you. He goes, I just wanted to come over and, you know, and tell you you're doing a great job. And I really was rude. I dismissed him and I said, well, thank you. And then I looked back down in hopes that he would leave. I didn't want to talk. I was in a bad place.
Don't make eye contact.
I didn't. But then I hear, Sheriff, are you here for cancer? And I looked up. I said, yeah, I'm here for cancer. And he said, well, I am too, and so's my son. And I didn't even see his son. And his son, who later died, was in a third bout of brain cancer. And I said, oh, gosh. So I stood up and I said, listen, sir, I'm sorry. I said, I was rude and I don't mean to be. I said, but I'm having one of those days. And he said, hey, I understand. He goes, would you allow my son and I to pray over you? And I was like, oh, God, you know, yes, I would.
Sure.
And he prayed over me, and I thought, good gosh, here I am. First of all, I dismissed him.
Right.
Secondly, he's going through cancer with his son. Can you imagine going through it? You know, I'm
Wow.
like, if I was going through my daughter, I would be a wreck.
Right.
I was a wreck, and it was just me. But throw one of my daughters in there, and I
Right.
would have been a complete wreck.
Yep.
But he was kind enough to say, well, let me pray over you, you know, and he saw I was in a bad spot.
Right.
And after that was done, I immediately looked up to God. I was like, I got your message, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You know, I said I'm going to quit feeling sorry for myself, and let's kick
There are
myself
people
into
out
gear.
there worse than I
They
am,
are,
you
and I
know.
learned that. And so 3 things I took from it. You know, it took a lot from me, and it will. And one day I'll probably get cancer because of the radiation that I got, but that's okay. What I took from that it never took from me is, one, as a family, we became tighter because
Right.
my wife was there when and my daughters, thank God they were grown, but they saw the ugliness, right? And then my relationship with God, you know,
Yeah.
it was like, boy, I mean, I said some really choice things to him, you know, and each time he answered it. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. I'm listening. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, you got my
know?
attention.
And then thirdly, the human spirit. We get caught up in today's world where it's just, we hear nothing but ugliness
Yeah.
and political strife, and crime is rising, and this is happening, and this is all the things we probably just talked about, right? And we forget, there's some great people out there, and the human spirit's still there.
Right.
Toughest people I ever saw. I was the baby. Like up in, you know, I'm the one feeling sorry for myself up in the chemo room, and I saw people there that were literally dying in front of me.
Right.
And they were just strong people. They'd given their lives to God and said, look, yeah, we might be out of this world, but we're going to a better
That's right.
place.
That's right.
And we're okay
well, nobody
with
gets
it.
out of here alive anyway.
They don't.
You know.
They don't.
So,
And they were
I mean,
just, it was like, they were such an inspiration to me that I will never forget that community. And so, you know, in a way, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. It was a terrible thing. It took a lot from me. But at the end of the day, I think, I don't want to say I needed it to happen, but I took more from it than it took from me.
Well, don't you think it probably humbled you and
For
put
sure.
you in a place that I mean, listen, Vic, you portray manliness, you portray strength, and that brought you to your knees.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
And I think that's why everybody was. I mean, well, we were praying for you because we did want you to get better.
Yeah.
But because you do portray that. You've done such wonderful things with the county of Tulsa and in coming in and taking over the leadership at the sheriff's department. And so
thank you. Yeah.
we wanted to see you succeed, and we're very grateful that you are. And you're up for re-election this year, aren't you?
I am up. I haven't heard of anybody running. Filing is, I think, in April.
Yeah, it's going to be
Third,
like
fourth,
the
or
first,
fifth or something like that.
It's
So-
going to be in April, and then I have not heard of anybody running
No, I haven't
against
either,
you.
so-
But if you're kind of like me, you're like, well, if you want the job, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think people look at what I do and go,
Yeah,
I don't know,
no,
I don't
not
want
today.
that.
No,
Let him have it. He's doing an okay job. We'll just let him keep doing it, as long as he can. But no, it is really an honor serving the people of Tulsa. And again, I do this because I still want to be connected. I still want to serve. I still think I can bring something to the table.
Yeah.
And I do. I do it for my family, and I do it for the people of Tulsa because this is my home. This is my kids' home.
Right.
And I just feel like this closeness with the people. I always have, even when I was with Tulsa Police. And they're just great people. I mean, and then people know what I'm talking about when they've gone and they leave, because what they think is bigger and better, and they
Right.
always come back to Tulsa
Come
and go,
back.
I always knew I'd come back.
Yeah.
You just do. This is a great
You know-
place, despite problems.
Yep.
It's a great place.
I was born in Oklahoma, was raised in Louisiana, moved back here I moved back right after I graduated high school for a couple of years. But this has always been home, because then I went back to Louisiana until '99. But this has always been home. It's always felt like a great place to raise a family, a great place to
Absolutely.
live, to be a business owner, to to do all the things that you really want to do, and to be able to be, to me, Tulsa exemplifies what America is all about,
I believe
and
that. I really do.
and I love this city, and I love our county.
Yep.
But I want to thank you so much, because we've talked about a lot, we've learned a lot today. And thank you for taking time out of your day, for being
Absolutely.
willing to come in and be my guinea pig. And but I just believe it's important that we take these issues directly to the source, to the people that
Absolutely.
can answer the questions that are in the know. And so thank you again, and we will have you on again.
Can't wait.
But I just want to thank everyone too for listening to the Real Talk with Rhonda, where we connect you to the listener, to the people that know about the issues that matter. And we'll be back next week. Thank you.